let's start, as we always do, with this self-massage tapping exercise. Rubbing your hands together. Then just tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Onto one shoulder and your arm. And the other side. And onto your back. Down to your hips. And then the legs down the outside and up the inside. Look light on your belly. And then the upper part of your chest. So, just standing comfortably, don't overdo the bending of your knees, especially to start off with, but weight a little bit forwards, just allowing your hips to drop back, so a gentle curve through your hips, your knees and your ankles, a feeling of dropping through your hips, through the centre of your body. So your weight has a sort of way of draining downwards through your body, and then just starting to turn in the centre. So when we just let the hips drop a little bit like that, what gradually begins to happen is this feeling of rooting down. Our weight, our centre of gravity dropping, and that helps to create an environment really for the body where we begin to release some of the tightness and stiffness in the upper part of the body by carrying less weight. And it can also sometimes feel as though that tightness is sort of draining downwards. It has to go somewhere. So the hips drop, and that leaves a little bit of space for your rib cage to drop. It's not, you haven't got the same sense of constantly pushing up. And as your rib cage drops and seems to hang from the spine, then the shoulders can drop as well. And the feeling that we're looking for has a quality of buoyancy in it. And it obviously, it's going to take time for legs to condition, for the muscles, tendons, and ligaments, and soft tissue in general, to get to a point where they can comfortably do this. But particularly in this higher position, I feel it's a bit like if you go into water and sort of drop down slightly, and there can sometimes be a point where you start to float, where the pull of gravity downwards is matched by the buoyancy of the water, and you're kind of held between the two. And in the same way, in this higher position, these two movements, the pull of gravity and that response from your feet, the contact with the ground and your legs, comes into a sort of neutral position with the pull of gravity. There's still movement up and down through your body, but you're not having to sort of let the hips drop more or something like that. And if you're in water, somebody kind of gently pushed you down, you'll kind of drop down and then bounce up again, sort of thing. So when we go into the deeper stances, that equilibrium changes, and we start to get a stronger sense of pushing up. We also start to condition the body more. But really, this is the position that we want to get to a point where it's comfortable for us. It's a kind of everyday position. You're waiting for the bus, you're waiting like this rather than knees and hips locked and upper body straining. So if I come forwards and turn, You see, it's a very slight curve in the knees. It's just from this to this, really. It's still a strong position, so you may well find that actually in the process of doing this, your legs start to get to a point where the muscles are shaking or stiffening up. And at that point, just will take a break, shake your legs out a little bit. But you'll find with practice, this position becomes more accessible to you. Turning in the centre of the body, feeling that movement going up through that more spacious area that we've created in the upper part of the body. So a sort of free, loose kind of movement in our hips, in our shoulders. One of the sort of images sometimes used for this is that it's like a weather vane blowing gently in a light breeze, so that we're not fighting against our own body just to move. And we begin to recognise the characteristics of these postures and the things that run through all of the movement. I often refer to the idea of there being a spacious quality within the body, for instance. And this allows movement, and not just the movement that we see, not just the external movement, but the inner circulation, breathing, all these metabolic processes that need space to move and to work in. This helps to build this sense of harmony, flow within the body. And just raising your arms a little. And then letting your hands drop and put forwards. And again, a slight drop, so that you want to feel that as you go forwards and backwards, your knees are moving quite freely. This is not to suggest that we shouldn't try at some point for the deeper stances, that there is no value in them. But if you go too deep for the state of your muscles, they will stiffen up, and that will restrict the movement. Just pushing gently against the ground, feeling that compression and expansion in your legs. Change sides. So back to the parallel stance again, weight a little bit forwards, and this time seeing if you can just let your hips drop back a little bit more until you feel that the resistance in your legs is beginning to push you up. Don't force it beyond that, because again, everything will start to stiffen up, and essentially you're no longer doing Tai Chi because you're straining for the movement. A little bit more subtle and harder to recognise, because we're so familiar with it, is the effect of gravity as we push up. Sometimes we find ourselves straining in our shoulders, but we want to try and keep the shoulders soft, keep the upper body spacious, pushing up until we feel that downward movement actually takes over and then pulls us down. And so between those two directions, we start to establish this rhythmic pulsing movement. As the legs expand, you feel your feet pushing down into the ground, your hips pushing up, into the upper body, so your shoulders, your head coming up. So we feel this movement beginning to resonate all the way through our bodies. You may find that your breathing just naturally harmonizes with this. If it doesn't, don't force the breathing. What we don't want to do is to strain in our belly or our solar plexus or our chest, because that will restrict the breathing. So feeling that your back supports the front of your body, upper body. Feeling that your skeleton supports you from within. And then bringing your hands around as though you're cradling the ball and pushing up. So this is the exercise routine down. Feeling your centre of gravity dropping. Now when we push up, we don't want to lift our centre of gravity up. I sometimes have, might be a slightly strange image, but almost as though my centre of gravity were a solid object, like a steel ball bearing or something like that. That drops through the ground and it's connected to my body by something like an elastic band and an elastic thread. And so rather than the centre of gravity coming up, it stays down in the ground and the elastic extends up and then draws me down. So it's as though your body, like a plant, like a tree, grows out of the ground, but then contracts back in. Just aware of the sensations in your body moving in this rhythmic pattern of expansion and contraction, your body breathing however it's breathing, the flow that begins to develop within your body. Now turning your fingers outwards, rotating your arms, letting that movement push your arms away from your body so they swing up. In the exercise, the wild goose. And then heart in the clouds. One more time. And then Sinking down, letting your hips drop, feeling the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders, and then extending up through one side, pushing your arm up, winding the arm around as though you're plucking something off a tree, pull down. Once again, feeling the weight of your arms, the weight of your hips sinking down, and then on the other side, as dragon plucks the stars from the sky. And this middle section, where we're just resting, arms hanging down, hips hanging down, is really important. We find these little moments in all of the movements, and noticing them is a good way of counteracting this tendency that we all have to speed up. We don't want to go artificially slowly. Sometimes it's quite hard work, well, it is quite hard work to move slowly. We don't want to overdo that, so you find a pace that works for you, but even then we find ourselves beginning to hurry. This is a habit of the mind. And by noticing these details, like the hips hanging back, the weight of our arms, it just encourages that part of our awareness, that part of our mind that wants to rush ahead, to focus a little bit, to quieten a little bit. Sinking down and then coming up again to that slightly higher position, bringing your hands around, and another detail to notice, the inside of your arm, lightly touching the side of your hips. And from there, lengthening through your back, and then all the way back down, and taking a moment to return your arms to that same position. And then pushing out, and back. So ideally, of course, we wouldn't be speeding up, but in practice, of course, we do. We're urged in the old Tai Chi writings to seek, to try and find that quality of stillness within the movement. And if we practice in this way, we find that my experience is that quality of stillness starts to sort of imbue the movement. Remember, we have a downward movement through the body that we can feel most obviously in our hips. We have that response from the legs pushing up, so the external movements that we see become the expression of that basic dynamic. There's a constant. Gravity is always there, our legs are always supporting us. So we begin to notice that pulsing expansion and contraction in this center part of our body, from hips to waist. So this becomes an increasingly significant focus for our attention. From the center of the body, and the centre of the body dropping to the ground, so from the centre of the body to the ground. Pushing out this time, you turn in the centre. Begin to feel how that middle part of the body really influences all of the movements. Coming back, turning the other way, we have the expansion from there, but also the direction comes from the centre. Again, an increase in awareness of moving in a centred way, a grounded way. pushing out to the side. So this is pushing in 4 directions. To begin with, what we have to do is to follow the movements that we see. So when we start doing Tai Chi, and anytime we really come across a new movement, we have to follow what we can see, which is the external movement. But with time and practice, we begin to recognize what's happening within the body. And so it's not that we ignore the external movements, it's not that they're not important, of course they are. But rather than the external movement guiding our attention to the internal movements, it starts to be the other way around. We can bring a degree of awareness and intentionality to those small patterns of movement, those small changes within the body that build into the bigger movements. The quality of the movement can change when we do that. But again, we're not ignoring the external movements. This is an art that goes from inside out, as it were. And that internal quality would be lost if I did something with my arms or my shoulders that disrupted what was happening within the body. Then that internal to external route would be blocked, would no longer be effective. Now, letting your arms drop down again, just feeling the weight of your arms, and then focusing again on one side, at the expanding quality of the movement. Push your arm out, drawing your fingers back slightly, so your hand swings up, and when it's in line with your nose, with the centre line of your body, straight down. Again, a moment just to feel the weight of your arm, and then start again, circling palms. This time from the top position, and in the turn, and then gradually that quietness, that stillness becomes hardwired into the way that we move, that awareness of the centre and the ground becoming more constant for us. Changing sides. And this is one of the real benefits I feel that we can take out of the actual practice into our daily lives, that quality of calmness. Once again, adding the turn. One of the things that I've discovered is that that moment of settling really is just a moment. We often feel we don't have time to settle. But it's just that moment to register. In this instance, of course, the weight of the arm or the feeling of the hips dropping back. Now, just letting the arms rest, and from this position, pushing your hips back so the pelvis tilts and the whole of your upper body tilts. This is not a back bend. So if I was going to bend my back, I would do this, but I'm trying to keep that line from my shoulders to my hips reasonably straight, and then allowing gravity to pull my hips down actually helps me to come upright. So we start to learn to come to the upright position nice and smoothly without having to strain in our backs or our shoulders. So this is an important aspect of the posture. We don't want to simply feel that we're having to struggle simply to stand and to move. This time, again, very gently, drop down as you do this. Knees bend a little bit more, then let your hips drop back and push up. So once again, feeling the significance of this central part of the body. It's still a strong movement, so go carefully. That you don't have to do big movements. Remember, if your back tightens up, it's going to block that sense of the energy flowing. But this time, let your arms follow. So rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. One more time. And then hands palm down, turn, and again push your hips back and swing across, drop down and turn back to the front. Then in reverse, this is polishing the table. I'm doing these movements quite big, so hopefully you can get an idea of the mechanics of them. But again, only move as far as you're comfortable. Try and maintain as an intention that feeling of spaciousness, particularly in the upper part of your body. And that can be a guide to how far to move. One more in each direction. Good, and then just coming back to standing in this upper position, that slight curve through your knees and hips. Feeling how your legs are supporting your upper body. Centre of gravity dropping, still rooting down. Also your pelvis were hanging from your spine, like a bucket might hang from a rope in a well, sort of dropping down between your legs. Your back supports your belly, your solar plexus, your chest. And an increasing sense of that support that comes from your skeleton and the associated tissues. So the effort of standing and moving starts to be distributed through the body, and again we learn that we can do all this with less strain. Check out. So an important part of the practice is this idea of returning. Yang are the extending movements, and with the extension our awareness goes out. But that is always harmonized with the yin, the drawing in. And we learn to focus that drawing in, again, into the center of the body from there down into the ground. This is going to have an effect not just on muscles and tendons and ligaments, it's going to have an effect on the nervous system. So that thought process, if you like to think of it like that, is not quite the right way of thinking of it, but that process begins to be hardwired into your nervous system. And this is something we can take out of the sessions with us. There are many benefits to Tai Chi. One of the really important ones, I feel, is this sense of being centered, of being grounded, this sense that a quality of stillness, of calmness, of spaciousness is never very far away from us. And it's accessible to us. As my first teacher, Norman Hipkin, used to say, we find ourselves standing like this in the supermarket queue. We associate the change in the posture, the release of tightness in the body, with the quietening, the settling of our minds. So this is one of the benefits of the practice that I feel builds. Now, take a slightly wider stance. Notice that my feet are turned out. At first sight, this is going to look as though it's much stronger on the legs, and in some ways it does condition the muscles of the legs more, but it allows us to drop down a little bit more effectively. So one of the things that we're looking to be able to do is to let our centre of gravity drop below the knees. We don't want our knees to continue to have to support the weight of the body. They haven't evolved to support our body's weight. They've evolved to enable us to move. But we so often stand with our knees very stiff. But that slight adjustment, the hips dropping back, takes that stiffness away, but it's only sustainable with the conditioning of the muscles of the legs. So once again, going down as far as you're comfortable, this is a good stance to practice, to build up that conditioning and transferring your weight from one side to another. So, coming into your left leg, so mirror my movements, and then just let your body turn a little bit. And no further than the direction that that foot is pointing. Don't twist right around like that. Maybe not as far as that. Depends how loose your hips are and what's happening in your back and your shoulders. Go into your right leg and turn. So coming back to that feeling, particularly in the upper part of the body, that there's space for movement. One of the things that is often said in Tai Chi is that we go to just sort of 75%, 80% of the full possible movement, so that we retain the space. It's a bit like if you were wearing a top that was half a size too small for you, or was exactly the right size, then if you were to reach out to get something off a shelf, there'd be a bit of resistance there. But if it was a half a size bigger than you needed, there'd be less resistance. And again, one of the things that we're trying to cultivate is this release of resistance within the body. At the same time, we bring in an image like moving through water into the movement. So there is a sense of resistance, but it's an external resistance, and what we might call a soft resistance. When we move in water, we kind of know instinctively that we shouldn't stiffen up. It makes the water feel more solid. So we start to move through this resistance in a very smooth way. And once again, that has an effect on all of the soft tissue of the body. And it has an effect on the quality of the movement, the flow of energy, which seems to become a little bit more denser, a little bit more resilient, but without losing the flow. Now we're going to use this movement, bringing your hands to your hips, feeling how when you move, you're Again, the weight moves, the center turns, and your arms follow the movement. And this time, coming into your right foot, and as you go into your left, let the left arm spring out, expanding through the left side of your chest, pushing your arm up until your hand is above the foot, your elbow is above your knee, and then coming back into your right foot and turning, so you draw your hand across your chest, turn the hand inward. So now you're holding a ball between your arms. Move across into your left, turn. We're going to do the same thing with the right arm. You move into your right, feel that expansion, pushing your arm out. And you press down with the left hand until it's resting in front of your left hip, and then back. This is the movement, part in the wild horse's mane. Turn the hands in here so you're holding the ball, and come back. Now if that image of the horse running, the mane flowing, the tail flowing behind it, offers a quality, then once again that can affect the movement. It can be interesting to see how our bodies respond to these images. That one of the ways that we begin to harmonize what we think of as body, what we think of as mind, and what we think of as energy. We tend to think of them as separate, they're not really. But if an image doesn't work for you, if you're standing there thinking, well, what's this got to do with horses? Then don't let that bother you. Not every image is going to work. And the images are there to serve the movements. You might find sometimes there's an image that you're interested in and it's worth following that up, but try not to do it while you're actually doing the movement. We want to retain that sense of an embodied awareness, a presence in this moment, in this body, in this movement. And that too contributes to this quality of stillness that seems to be a part of the movement. It's a part in the wild horse's mane. This is a movement adapted from the Tai Chi sequences. You want to feel that your arms are being moved by these processes, the transfer of the weight, the turn in your center, the patterns of expansion and contraction within your body, rather than that you have to somehow strain in your arms or your shoulders. Like the branches of a tree will grow out from the trunk. One more time. And let your hands drop down. Shake out. So again, it's important not to get distracted by the images. Sometimes an image might work. Sometimes not. Sometimes I found that images that worked a few years ago no longer mean much to me. Or I might find that an image that didn't mean much to me suddenly takes on a meaning. But we shouldn't be stuck on the images. The images seem to, as I say, bridge body and mind. But actually, we want to get to a point where we don't see body and mind as being separate. And we have these three aspects of the movement, what are sometimes I've heard referred to as the three jewels, the three treasures. And we have the physical side of the movement, which is obviously very important. We have the use of our mind, awareness, intention. And then we have the movement itself, the flow, the momentum, the energy, however you care to think about it. And I sometimes describe them as being like three legs of a tripod. Take any one of them away, you no longer have a tripod. So although there are different elements, they're actually a harmonious part of a whole. And that's an important idea, I think, to hold gently. I mean, there's nothing wrong with coming back and using an image, but when we're walking down the road to do our shopping or something like that, we're not necessarily thinking of kind of wild horses or something like that. We're thinking about what we're going to have for dinner or whatever. But we still want to be able to sort of make use of these benefits of the art. So the imagery can be useful. As I said, it can be interesting to notice how our bodies respond to the images, but they're not the final part of the art. Now we're going to change the stance again. Go back to the hip width stance. Turn one foot out. Step forwards with the other foot. You're still hip width apart and about the same in length this time. Again, let your hips drop down and begin to transfer your weight forwards and backwards again. More slowly this time, giving yourself a chance to settle into each leg. Again, that moment of settling in mind and body, trying to release any tightness in your hip, your leg, your knee. And feeling how when you do that, the sense of compression in your leg becomes stronger, and then the leg will expand, your foot will push down into the ground, and we'll get that rising movement, which we then take through the center of the body and direct into the other foot. So going back to that idea of these moments that I sometimes describe as being like a comma in a sentence, those very specific moments of settling, of stillness, rather than being an alternative to the movement, they're sort of the way that we gather the energy into the movement. They're an essential part of the movement. If we think of that middle part of the body as being the place of stillness, or from there down into the ground, this central part is sometimes described as being like the hub of a wheel. And if you ride a bicycle, then you'll know that the hub of the wheel is held in the frame. So the hub is still and the wheel moves around it. So stillness and movement are not separate things. Once again, they're integrated as part of a whole. And if you ride a bike and the wheel comes loose, you're not going to get much further with it. So again, rather than thinking of those moments and those times when we're able to be still as somehow not being relevant to the movements and our daily activities, we realise that they're an essential part of it. So for example, when you move your weight into your back foot and you settle down, you have the opportunity just to raise the front toes. When you go forwards and you settle into the front foot, you push your back knee in and your heel comes up. And when you do this, you notice I'll exaggerate slightly. I'm here, as I raise my toes, my body shifts back a little bit more. That is exaggerated. So we gradually begin to find this sense of alignment of the body and the root over one leg. You may notice I've got my front foot slightly turned out to open up this hip here. So we begin to find that sense of being settled, of being stable on one leg. And then what we can do is you can bring this foot in, push it back out, put the ball of the foot down, lower the heel, press gently into the floor, and sink back, planting the foot. And we bring the front foot in, same idea, but it's the heel that goes down first, and the ball of the foot, and then planting and the weight transfers. So we plant the foot, so you're pressing the foot into soft sand, just to really feel, again, that all-important connection to the ground. And shake out. On the other side, that planting of the foot needn't wait until we're doing the stepping. You go into your back foot, you gently push the foot in, front foot into the floor, and then let the weight flow. So qualities like being centered, being grounded, are not just words to us in Tai Chi. They're qualities that we feel through the body. We know that we're grounded because we can feel the ground, because our root is in the ground, because we can feel that without the ground there's no sense of energy coming up. We realise that it's the centre dropping to the ground, that if we want to move, then the movement is through the centre. This becomes a focal point, the hub of the movement. And then raising your toes and your heel again. Stepping in, step back, plant the foot, transfer the weight. Remember that image of moving through water if it's helpful to you. And then taking some steps through, you can go forwards or backwards, depends where you have the room. Change direction. Have your right foot forwards again. So this time, mirroring my movements, bringing the arms back into the whole process. Again, feeling their weight as they hang from your shoulders. Push forwards, and as you settle into the front foot, let your arms swing through. This is fisherman cast the net. You're facing forwards, you're moving forwards and backwards. Your arms are swinging forwards and backwards. Very simple, just giving us a chance to appreciate this wave-like flow of energy coming up from the ground, moving our arms forwards, not straining in our shoulders. This time as you come forwards and your arms swing through, they start to swing up and you turn to your left and that redirects the arms. Remember, the hub of the wheel is the centre of the body. Coming back, sinking into your back foot, turning to your right. Contracting, expanding, contracting, yin, expanding, yang. This is the exercise Wind Blows the Willows. Good. Okay. Your legs a little shake, and then the same two exercises with your left foot forward, starting with fisherman castanet, and just again, just trying to feel what's happening in your back and your sides and the front of your body, patterns of movement, of expansion and contraction, pathways of movement through your body, patterns that we learn to bring an intentional quality to. So increasingly it feels less as though we're having to move our arms, more as though our arms are being moved for us. And then once again, we bring the centre actively back into the movement by turning into wind blows the willows. And the contraction as you move your way to the expansion and the turn as you settle into your leg. Nice and easy and gently, and we can combine this with the step in. Again, you can go forwards or backwards, depending on where you have room. I'm going to have to go forwards, so I'm going to bring my rear foot in, hips dropping back, and step through and plant. This is dragonfly skims the water. Same thing. And what you may find that you're able to do, and don't do this if it feels uncomfortable for you, is you bring the foot in and then you can gently raise the leg. Rotating your hips. Changing direction if you haven't done so already. Good, and then just shake it. Okay, let's do this little tapping exercise once again. It can help to take some of the stiffness out of the muscles. Helps us to settle after the more difficult exercises. So rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. And on the other side. And onto your back. Round your hips. And your legs. Coming up light on your belly. And the upper part of the chest. And the last exercise that we do really emphasizes this process of coming back to that stillness. And it's a good exercise to finish with because of that. Starting in the parallel stance, it's called Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain, sinking down, pushing up. But then letting your arms come around as though you're going to hold a ball against your chest, drawing in, squeezing the ball in, and then let your hips drop, the shoulders drop, coming back down to this deeper position, letting the arms settle, and then pushing up again. So what we might refer to, think of as a yin movement, really emphasizing that process of returning to a posture and a state of mind that is quieter and calmer. Once again, one that remains accessible to us. One more time. And then stand. Shake out. Thank you as always. Thank you for joining in. And as always, do feel free to contact me with any comments or
I will say I really like your analogy